I remember sitting in the movie theater. This girl was on her phone the entire time, and she was just like not looking at the screen. She didn't want to look at it because it's a horror movie. She wanted to cover her eyes, all that. She looked up for 2 minutes, and there's one jump scare in this movie where it's not a person that gets killed; it's a squirrel that gets killed, and that made her go.
Wait,
You
squirrel?
don't remember the squirrel?
Wasn't it a wombat?
No, it was a squirrel.
Oh.
Yeah, so a squirrel gets killed in the movie, and she just freaked the fuck out. You're listening to Alternating with Erik, episode 43. I am Connor, and I am alternating with my Russian martial artist friend.
Erik, right here. Can't believe we're still using that little
Gotta
joke.
brand you somehow, buddy.
That's a branding that almost could get me insulted at, as I've recently found out from our listening base.
Yes, I don't know if that guy is still listening, but if we still have our one angry listener in the Ukraine, das vidanya. How would I say hi, Erik?
Privet.
Okay, privet. All right. Well.
Yeah. What exactly were you going to say?
I would like if he's still listening, actually, because we'd have at least more than 4 listeners.
What were you about to say in Russian before I corrected you?
I was going to say das vidanya, but that's how you say goodbye, isn't it?
No, see you later.
Okay. See, I already know niet and das vidanya, and
Brush up on your Russian
all
a
my
little
Russian's
bit.
from like movies and shit. You know that.
Russians say things beyond niet and das vidanya.
I literally just found out today that Dolph Lundgren is not Russian, and I thought he was because of Rocky. And I just learned he's Swedish. I didn't even think he was Swedish.
It's not a bad thing.
I mean, I didn't even think that. Like, I just assumed he was Russian because he plays it so well. And he looks more Russian than I'd say Sweden, but I guess I could sort of see the Sweden side of him as well.
Oh, it is usually hard to tell sometimes, but...
By the way, I am rocking our old pop filter today, so we'll see how this sounds. I just came out of a cold, so hopefully my voice isn't too shit this week. And yeah, let's address the elephant in the room. So Erik.
Hey, I'm trying to lose weight.
No, I didn't mean you. I mean, I want to get you involved because you're looking at memes right now. So, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. We had to take a hiatus because... I wish I could say it was like an important issue, but it was really just my computer malfunctioned, and I do all the editing for the show. Erik does the Facebook, and he comes on the show, and that's it. And I edit all the videos.
Oh, gee, don't make my my existence too,
You're important.
Unimportant, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
So yeah, I do all the editing, like the video and the audio and stuff. That's why we also don't do video, because fucking video can take ages to render. And on my old computer that we had, if you saw that Armageddon video, my computer turned off like 3 separate times when we did that, when we finished that video, because it rendered and then halfway through it would just shut off. Because it would overheat or would have some other issue. And then the reason I got rid of it is because I would turn it on. The fan would just get hotter and hotter and hotter. And then it would just shut down by itself.
Yeah.
And so I brought it in to get it fixed. The guy had a look at it. And then he's like, cool, we'll replace this, and this. And we'll get it working good as gold. And then he calls me like a day later. And he's like, no, man, I've done everything. And it's still fucking up. And it forgets the motherboard. And he was like, you can replace the motherboard, but it's going to cost you like thousands. So instead, I had to save up for this new computer that I'm using now properly to edit the show that you're hearing now. And we did finally get the YouTube video up, so you can check that out, this Natural Let's Play. Erik edited that one, and it was supposed to be up actually a couple of weeks ago, but... something's changed with our YouTube page where only I can upload stuff to it at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to change that so Erik can put some stuff up as well. But, that's why that wasn't up. That's why the audio is not mixed the way it usually is. Like, I'd usually change the audio and mix it and stuff, but it's not done. I may or may not change that in the future. I'll see if I can fix the audio but just so it's a bit louder in the mix. And we'll probably have another Magic the Gathering video up, and I will be gone one of these weeks. So yeah, but yeah, that's why we went on a slight hiatus. And if you saw my Instagram post, I'd posted that we were gonna go on a hiatus. Or I was gonna say I was almost considering just ending the podcast completely, which we've sort of talked about off air and on air a little bit. We'll see how it goes. I would really like to get this to 50 or 100, and some of you may have noticed we rebranded this. This used to be, if you go back to our old catalog of episodes, there's a dozen episodes of just anime stuff. We won't not ever review that stuff ever again. We probably will, but it's not going to be our main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we need to do why anime is special because we've covered enough episodes.
Yeah.
Why it is and isn't special.
Even a double up episode where we reviewed 40 episodes of a single anime.
I think we can take a decent sized break from covering that stuff for a while with the amount of episodes. If you're what does Eric and Connor think of anime? Well, go listen to the 30 something episodes I think we had.
Is it 30 now? Oh my god.
No, probably actually no, it'd probably be about 15 episodes in the whole catalog, I'd say. Because there's a big chunk as well at the start where I was just doing this, and it was called Alternating Sloth Podcast, because it was meant to be a solo cast of just me and not Eric, and I was just talking about my week, because I was doing 2 podcasts at the time, and then this became the main podcast.
Yeah,
and I got you on 1 episode, and then you asked to come back again. So
just to summarize, we both got bored at the COVID lockdown, and
COVID is the main reason why this is still going. One good thing came out of bloody COVID.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there's better things that came out of COVID, but let's make this the good one.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. People living obviously is a big one. Yeah. Okay. Eric probably got a chuckle out of me adjusting the pop filter because back in the day, man, it was taking a couple minutes to adjust the pop filter.
Connor's currently using the old school pop filters, so if it sounds any different, then it's because he's using the old thing.
Okay, so enough of the updates and stuff. This is not an update video, but I just thought it needed to be said because we've been gone a while. Since we've been gone a while, Eric, what have you been doing since we haven't been recording? What have you been watching, doing, whatever?
Mostly going over my new work, which is security at the moment.
Yep.
I've been jumping around places, doing my own thing, making sure nobody decides to sneak up on me and all that. Just, general security work. At the same time, I'm working towards upskilling myself, so trying to learn new things because life has given me new opportunities to do new things. So there you go. Also, most of what I'll be learning is IT stuff, so maybe one day I'll help Connor out a little bit more with this stuff. And then he can stop complaining about it. I keep getting on my back.
Learn video editing. That's the main one. Because I'm not that great at it, and neither's Eric.
No, but maybe with this new upskill, I'll get better.
Yeah.
And otherwise, just been doing nothing much in terms of my martial arts. In terms of my martial arts, I've gone to empty the cup and refill it, which is a term my teacher has decided to use to say forget everything you've done, start from the beginning. Because I've reached to a point where I do need to do that, regress back, and then build myself up again.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that have happened, a lot of things that have kind of changed the way I've thought about things and how I've viewed myself, and also about how I do martial arts. So I've decided to just throw that all away and just start again. So it'll be
like starting on a level 100.
No, it'll be literally starting from level 0 to 100.
No, but I mean in terms of your strength. Like, you've got, like, the strength from, like, a level 100 person, you know, because you've been doing all this martial
Yeah.
arts. And you,
I wouldn't
but you're relearning,
Yeah.
but you're relearning the skill set
I
that
wouldn't
comes with that
say
strength.
I wouldn't say my strength is 100. It'd be pretty low at this
Like
point.
50?
Lower than that,
I would
unfortunately.
say you're
Yeah.
probably like 50.
Well, in terms of how, if me needing to pass, it's pretty low by consideration. So, for me personally, right now, it's trying to get back and get to a level where I can, continue to achieve things, that are appropriate for me at my level right now.
So, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but Eric does Wing Chun. I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
It's Northern style kung fu, right? Am I correct in
So
that?
Wing Chun is originally
Yep.
traces its origins back to Shaolin monks that have trained,
Yep.
and they've also from one of these Shaolin monk temples. One of them got burned down by their enemies, and so some have escaped. One of which was a nun, who had decided to teach this young woman named Wing Chun
Yep.
the style, which primarily women can use because of how closely it ties to the female form, and how even females can use it very easily. And so it kind of made its way across China and right down into Vietnam.
Yeah.
So
Which is where your version comes from.
where our version comes from.
What I was going to bring up though is we're recording at Eric's house. I'm always surprised you don't have one of those wooden doll things that they use for Wing Chun.
Wooden dummies?
Yeah, wooden dummies.
I've been looking for one, but it's pretty hard to find one.
Are they expensive?
Very.
Okay.
Very. And also, unfortunately, it might take up a bit too much room in my room.
You could probably get a small one.
Could get one. But even a small one for my size is pretty huge.
Because I used to see them in, there was a place in Hai Tai Tai that had a bunch of martial arts stuff, and I saw one on there.
Yeah. Probably might have a look there as well, but I'll see.
Yeah. So I've been going from a couple different jobs. I'm not even going to get into work, to be honest. It's been hectic. But I will say I was sick all last week, so I was not working and I was stuck inside. And we were going to record that week, and then I got sick. So I was not only sick, but I was also pissed because I was like, Jesus Christ, we were going to come back. We had this all planned, and then, I was sick. And
don't be pissed at yourself.
Yeah.
Being sick in this current environment is a bit of a...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I was worried I had COVID but I was thinking, like, maybe this could be COVID because it started off with a cold. And it was pretty minor, and then I had a head cold, and then it turned into like a pretty serious fever, and I had it for like 6 days. So I was thinking like, shit, I've got COVID. But then I went in to doctors, and all good. Just had to have lots of honey lemons and shit.
Yum.
Yeah. So that happened, but I've got a new laptop now. So it's a gaming laptop, so it'll process super well our videos and our audio. And I'm not going to lie, I have been gaming on it because it is a gaming PC. And I have been trying out some games on it and stuff.
which one was that one game you just told me about?
So I've been playing Path of Exile.
Yes.
Which I've never really played those, like, what did you call them? Over the top, sort of?
It's, what is it?
I can't remember the
I forgot the terminology now as well. I had it before.
It's like World of Warcraft type sort of playing type thing. That's the best way I can describe it.
More like Diablo 3 style.
Okay. Yeah, so you know these games better than I do. I mostly just put on a podcast and level it up. Or what I did actually recently was I actually got back into listening to some metal, and I chucked on some heavy metal music and listened to it. So I've been doing that. I was tempted when we came back, actually, even though we're kind of taking a break from doing animated manga stuff. I was almost going to talk about Berserk on here as a special thing, because sadly Kentaro Miura died, and man, that was just devastating. Like I was so glad I wasn't working that day, because I kind of needed like some time just to process what happened. And my pop filter just fell on my nose. But yeah, no. To be more serious on this, I was very upset that happened. It was devastating news. I literally went back and reread like most of it. I said like, oh, I'm only gonna reread, like the arcs I like or the stuff that isn't covered in the anime. So like, I wasn't gonna read like all the arcs that were basically like the backstory stuff that's basically covered already in the anime and the two different movies. So I was just like, I'm just gonna cover the just the stuff that's not animated or animated poorly in case of the 2016-2017 anime series that came out.
Yeah, I don't think we care too much about that because the 3D style animation made things look a little bit.
Oh, that makes me so sad that there's nothing really good. Especially because I saw people on Twitter and stuff looking for ways to watch Berserk, and all of them are watching the latest series because if you're anyone, like if you everybody does this. They go for the latest thing. They're not nerds. They're not geeks like us. They're not going to be like, oh, I know what the best Berserk adaptation is. Or they'll just go for like, okay, I'm going to Google Berserk. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find the books to read. And they may read them. But most people are just going to be like, what can I watch that's adapted this? And then they're going to try watch the bad CGI dubbed version of 2016 Berserk. And it's like, oh, it's sad that I have to tell you that
doesn't paint a
the
pretty
only way you
light
can
on the
really
series.
experience it well is kind of reading the manga or watching the 90s TV show that barely covers it all.
Yeah.
It covers it well, and I'd actually would have preferred if they just continued with that because I feel like it would have progressively gotten better. Kind of like if you watch Hajime no Ippo, which is like, funny I'm bringing that up because both of those authors are friends, and they wrote their stuff around the same time, I believe. I believe both started like in the late 80s, 90s sort of and continued on. But both of those guys, like if you watch Hajime no Ippo, the first season's actually like it's in the 2000s, but it looks like it was animated in like the early 90s. Like it looks kind of bad.
Yeah.
And then as it goes on, like the animation progressively gets really good until you get to like, what is it, Rising? And Rising looks like amazing in terms of animation. Like it looks really good. And I imagine like Berserk would have the same thing, where it would have like that 90s look for a while, and then we'd get to like 2010, because I think it would have gone to 2010 with how long Berserk is. And we would get to 2010 and it would look amazing. Like it would look great, you know.
Yeah, because even in 2010, there was some pretty decent shows coming out that year. Can't name any because I can't remember most shows coming out in 2010. But I know,
Yeah.
I remember the
Well,
style.
Steins Gate, I think it's 2010.
Oh yeah. Well, in that case, the style would have definitely caught up pretty well with that period.
I just think 2010 and what is it, like 2011 and stuff, there was some duds in there and stuff as well, but I felt like the animation wasn't taking a total drop. Early 2000s, we think the animation looks amazing because of our nostalgia, but you go back and watch some of those early 2000s shows, some of the animation, some of the look, there's some shows in there that look a bit dudsy.
Yeah.
Like Ippo, as I mentioned, like it doesn't look that great. The first couple episodes, but it gets really great. But yeah, so I've reread most of that, and as I said, I've been listening to lots of metal, like playing Path of Exile, because I've kind of tried to pick the character that looked like Guts a little bit to play this game, and that's kind of how I try and enjoy it, because I'm not really into fantasy at all. Berserk is one of the few things I like that's fantasy, but I like it mostly because I like the characters and I like the horror elements. And this one, there's a bit of that in it too. So, been playing that. Played Sleeping Dogs actually as well.
Nice.
I played the DLC that I hadn't played, which is Smelly Cat or something. It's the one with Gangshi, the hopping vampires.
Oh, I can't even remember that.
The vampires, like the Chinese vampires that have teeth and they have the talismans on their head.
Oh,
and shit.
yep.
We might cover that in an episode. Cover some stuff on that because they're pretty cool. But yeah, that's been mostly my week. just basically work stuff. I'm still gigging from time to time. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen I played around with some tunings, different tunings, and I'm also doing some songwriting a little bit more. So there's that. But we're gonna take a slight break, and then we're gonna get into a quiet place. Alright, we're back from the break. We're talking about a quiet place and why it's special. And I'm gonna stop whispering now.
Yeah, it looked like you're about to gasp for breath right about
Yeah,
now.
so I'm going to stop whispering because there's no creatures in this room currently other than Eric.
Wait.
So so we're going to talk about this. We are going to talk a little bit about 2. I'm going to not spoil it because Eric hasn't seen it, and neither has most of the world because the theatre showings of it got cancelled in America because of COVID stuff. Australia as well. Although my brother's friend got to see it right before they cancelled. And I have seen 2. I'm probably one of the few people who've seen 2. I went to the first showing of it. So I am not going to talk too much about the actual movie. I will talk about my experience watching the movie because that is not a spoiler. Although I will say we will spoil the first movie because not only talking about the movie are we going to have to spoil the movie, but my experience of watching A Quiet Place 2, anyone who hadn't seen the first one would have had it fucking spoiled watching that movie with us because someone would not shut the fuck up while we're watching the movie. But I'll get into that later. So let's just talk about the first movie. So I wanted to actually talk about both of these movies, my theatre going experience with both of these because I had to remember if it was it or if it was this movie that I heard someone scream. And then I remembered it was this movie that I actually heard someone scream in a movie theater because this movie does the one thing that I love, which is it gets people off their fucking phones because you cannot watch this movie and look at your phone at the same time.
Yeah, this looks like a very interesting almost silent film style most of the time. You hear sound, but most of the time it's so quiet and a lot of the characters
pay
don't
attention to the characters.
Yeah.
And actually sounds are louder because the lack of dialogue and the lack of like every sound is heightened, which is kind of funny because my hearing's sometimes off, and if you have hypersensitive hearing like I sort of do, that's kind of what it can be like sometimes of really like quiet sounds getting loud.
It also seems like taking a whole movie and turning it from deafening silence and basically creating that, a deafening silence where someone makes a revelation and suddenly, hearing a pin drop because everyone else is silent makes it sound like a boom. Big boom bomb.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the movie.
Yeah, so
in general.
I guess I should actually also just cover what the movie's about. So I'm just going to give a quick synopsis, which is a family is in basically they're in America. They have to be quiet because there's these monster things that basically target you based on noise because they can't hear. They can hear, they can't see. So they rely on hearing to get around like bats. But yeah, I want to talk about my movie going experience of this. So there were 2 girls that came to this movie theater, and it was like maybe half packed or something. So it wasn't fully packed. When I went and saw it was fully packed. That movie was completely packed, and I saw it I think the same week as it. That's why I'm remembering both. But I remember sitting in the movie theater. This girl was on her phone the entire time. And she was just like not looking at the screen. She didn't want to look at it because it's a horror movie. She wanted to cover her eyes, all that. She looked up for 2 minutes, and there's one jump scare in this movie where it's not a person that gets killed, it's a squirrel that gets killed. And that made her go,
Wait, squirrel?
You don't remember the squirrel?
Wasn't it a wombat?
No, it was a squirrel.
Oh.
Yeah, so a squirrel gets killed in the movie, and she just freaked the fuck out. She like
Oosh.
screamed. She almost dropped her phone. She had to pick it up. And then the rest of the movie, she wasn't looking at her phone. She was like covering her eyes a couple times, but
Hmm.
I think the characters like eventually sort of brought her in, and she was just like trying to watch the movie, and then
Mm.
sometimes like putting her hands over her face to cover up from the. So, it's not really when you think about it though. I wouldn't say it's a kids movie, and I definitely wouldn't say it's like I'd say it is a movie though that's mature, but it's not super violent and it's not gory. Like you could show a regular person this. The thing I would say with this movie is it's more focused on the characters than it is the kills. And I would say this movie does what I really like, which is kind of like what John Carpenter did with The Thing, where if you watch that movie, it's almost kind of like a western, but it's written like a western, but it's technically a horror.
Mm.
Like The Thing is kind of when you think about it, it's kind of about like a ragtag group of people and like of men, like working together, and you could trade that, you could change that to like a group of cowboys or like a group of oil workers or something, and then the outlaw comes into town and changes
Yeah.
everything. The High Plains Drifter comes into town, and you could sort of give that analogy a little bit with this,
Mm.
because this almost reminded me of like some old school westerns I've seen where there's a big focus on like the family and them on the farm,
Ah,
sort of
yeah.
like especially since they're on a farm, and they don't hide like a lot of. They have a very they're kind of an old school family because you don't really see religion portrayed much anymore, like in movies. So them praying like just kind of made me think like, oh, you don't see that anymore in films. Like
Hmm.
most people, so
Yeah. You mean stuff like saying grace or
yeah, saying grace, like a lot of that traditional sort of stuff, and that's
mm,
the sort of stuff you do see in like old westerns and stuff with the
yeah.
family gathered around. Also the roles, like the dynamics,
Yeah.
like the mother being the mother figure, like she is tough and she does have scenes where she like does stuff. But there's a lot of like that sort of very like the Western type of thing where the tough, gruff sort of dad is taking care of. Like it reminded me of 310 to Yuma,
Mm.
where the son is like trying to be sort of like the dad a little bit and trying to he's been raised to sort of take care of the family, and the dad is he's the breadwinner of the family. He comes home,
Yeah.
and the wife just does the wife things and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's sort of what I wanted to touch on with the movie. I obviously enjoyed the movie a lot. It's actually my favorite movie that year, and I was kind of pissed it didn't get any Oscars or anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
What do
I
you
do
think?
agree with you on that one. Not sure that a Western style would have been the first thing, or that
I
a
guess
sort
that's
of
just me.
yeah.
I just think it's
There are some comparisons to that,
yeah
to A Quiet Place,
yeah
and honestly, it would have definitely kept to that image if it wasn't for the horror elements that I included.
oh yeah
I would imagine this more to be a sort of post-apocalyptic nature sort of
yeah
film. I guess if looking at it from that perspective, you'd think that the reason the dynamics
yeah
went into that is because of a matter of survival and a
yeah
matter of order, just trying to figure things out in this chaos, and it does make a lot of sense, especially since you see the dad and he has a little room where
yeah
he's trying to figure out how to communicate with the outside world
mm,
in a special way, which
yeah
requires almost no sound. And he has all this information, he
yeah
has all these televisions, and he's got all this stuff, and he's just, yeah. So while they're all trying to figure out what's going on, they're also trying to keep order and just a sense of familiarity with each other
mm,
where they are. So that I feel there's that comparison, and that the mostly enjoyable part about this whole movie is I think the lack of dialogue, and even when the dialogue does come into play, it's more
mm.
about trying to make sense of things. I guess for example, the father and son having that conversation about
Yeah.
what happened at the beginning of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother herself. You know, you've just mentioned the mother figure is supposed to be that strong, tough. Sort of mother bear figure who's
That's a good way of describing her.
who's protecting her kids, and yet there's that tender moment she has with her husband.
Yeah.
Showing first signs of weakness, realizing exactly how dire the situation is, and having to fully rely on him now. And not that she hasn't relied on him before, but then, as you said, when it comes to I guess a Western point of view, there's that sort of separation
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I just thought the family and the farm and like them sort of all having to do their like almost growing their own crops, sort of like that stuff. That's
Yeah,
very much like if you've seen some westerns and stuff, that is a thing that's usually in like a family sort of western thing where you've got like a family having to protect themselves from the outlaws or like there's somewhere they take in an outlaw or something like that. There's
I honestly thought that's what was going to happen in the movie, that they had their happy life, looking
and
out
then
for all these
yeah, they couldn't
creatures.
take a monster in though. I don't think it would be like this
But
is
they
our cuddly best friend.
but they could have taken in a straggler who's trying to survive, and it just
Yeah,
messes everything up.
yeah.
But it turned out that
It's kind of a typical zombie trope though. More that would be even more
I
alarming,
think
like a
it
zombie
came
thing.
close. I think it came to not any of the movies, but there was a comic spin-off of 28 Days Later, where there was one story of a family trying to
Yeah.
survive. It's a very short story, but it
No,
has
I know it. I know what
similarity to
you're
that.
talking about.
Yeah, who was that? What was that comic by again?
Oh, I can't remember.
I
Maybe
can't
Garth
remember
Ennis
either,
or something did it. But
but
yeah.
it was a pretty good comic.
Yeah. But yeah, this movie, just some information. This movie came out in 2018, and the sound design. Okay, so there are so many people on the sound design thing. I really wanted to give credit to like all the Foley people, but we'd be here for a couple of days just doing that. So I'll just give the main cues to two of the main guys who are now I may pronounce these names wrong. Erik Edil and Ethan Van Duren. And yeah, they did
Wait, is Van Duren
Van Duren.
one word or two words?
It's written here as three words:
Oh.
Van and then Dur and then Rin. So Van Duren, and they are, I believe, the sound designers on this, and I think they're the sound designers on 2 as well.
Okay.
But if you know anything about sound design like I do, you know it takes a full team. There's a lot of Foley work in this. It's kind of funny watching this movie having done some Foley work because I watched all the walking scenes in this movie and I couldn't help but laugh a little bit because there's no gravel, there's no rocks or anything that they have to walk on, and that stuff it is great. You can get something that looks like gravel that kind of is like rocks if you're doing Foley, but the stuff they walk on, like the sand and like the sort of branches and stuff,
Yeah.
you always have one of those in Foley rooms. So I was kind of like, did John Krasinski pick these locations because they were going to be easy to do for Foley, like walking? Because also they're not doing like, the walking's not too crazy. Walking can be kind of hard to match because you have to like do shoulder movement and stuff as well. And you almost have to walk kind of different. Like I think you have to walk on your heels or something. I haven't done it in a while. But
Generally outside the balls of your feet.
it's it's something very different from like I had to like train when I did it. I had to train my mind differently, like to how I
yeah,
walk.
true.
Like it's that different. And obviously with this, you'd have to not only match like one person's height, but you have to match 2 children's height and a woman and a guy's height, and they're all varying heights. So you have to match that. So they did a very good job. I didn't notice any like duds in the sound design. I was honestly going through the movie expecting like, because I was trying to look for something to not like about this movie, because I always like to try and at least be a little bit critical. And I had a really hard time actually trying to find something bad in the sound design. Like there was nothing really bad there. The only thing I would say, it wasn't bad, it was just something that was with my movie experience. In the very first scene, when they're in the supermarket, when I watched it the first time, there was a movie playing right next door to us, and the cinemas didn't do a very good job masking the sound, let's just say, in the
Oh
other
dear.
room. But what was cool was we got a very cool, very creepy low rumble noise, like not one you can actually kind of. It's kind of a hard sound to produce, like to put under your score. I would say it would be like 31 hertz, maybe a little more. Like you could actually hear it. 31 hertz, you won't really hear. Something maybe a little bit more than that. But just this like low, maybe 250 hertz sort of rumble just underneath, like we could feel it because I think someone was watching, I think it's like Furious, that movie that was about the Ferrari Enzo sort of.
Fast and the Furious?
No. The one that was about Ford versus Ferrari. That's what it's called.
Ford.
So that like loud car movie, like the rumble noises from that was like coming into a quiet place. And I loved it because it was just adding. I thought it was part of the movie. I was like, this is so cool. How did they achieve that like deep rumble under the scene?
So the cinema accidentally created a sound effect that you
great
loved.
sound effect. So I almost kind of wish they would have added something like that to the movie, but that scene still plays well. And as we've brought up before, the lack of sound in some of these scenes and it just suddenly making noise is it's great. Like as someone that has a bit of hearing damage, sometimes if I'm on a plane, I'm like the best way I could describe like my hearing sometimes, and sometimes the sound design in this is when your ears pop on a plane and suddenly some sounds are a little bit louder and a little bit sharper. Sometimes I have a little bit of that because I have some hypersensitivity in my left ear. But with this movie as well, what was great was I was watching it and I was like, oh my God, that's like hypersensitivity, like some of the sounds, because they're way louder than what they actually are. And some of the sounds you do think are louder because you've been through so much quiet. Like there'll be a scene where there's been like an hour of quiet. And it's like there's been just talking like sign language. And then all of a sudden, like the best example of this is there's a fire in one scene. And like it's literally almost a jump scare. Like nothing jumps at you, but the sound jumps at you. And that frightens you. That makes you jump out of your seat.
Because it's so sudden and such a breaking point in
and it's so loud too.
silence.
It's actually louder than a little bit louder than what it would be in real life, just a little bit, just so you notice it and you go, holy shit.
Yeah, that definitely was a big I wouldn't say a big scare, but it definitely was a big jump from just a couple of kids doing playing games quietly to suddenly boom. It was it was an interesting moment. But yeah, I guess the other thing we need to at least mention when we're talking about a quiet place is exactly why the family is keeping quiet and they're taking all these precautions.
So yeah, there's these monsters that are kind of insect-like. They're kind of spider-like. This movie, actually, some people were comparing them to the monsters in Last of Us. And that's kind of a funny comparison because
the monsters in the quiet place aren't fungal zombies.
Yeah, but they're kind of creakle the same, and I would say, actually, if you watch the second movie, which I will talk a little bit about in a couple of minutes, that is very Last of Us. There are scenes in the second movie that feel like the video game Last of Us. This one, like, there's moments where I was like, oh, that kind of feels a little bit like Last of Us, like people going through the, one thing that definitely shines in this movie and the second movie is the really good performance. I think her name is Melissa Simmons. I hope I'm getting that right. She is a deaf actress and she plays the girl in this. I can't remember the daughter's name.
That has to be the most terrifying role to play in this movie ever because you're playing a deaf girl in a world where you can't make any where you can't make any sound and you wouldn't even know if you're making any sound that attracts these monsters.
Yeah. So I'll get into that. I don't want to spoil that. There's moments where they I mean, you talk about that, but for me, I would be more wondering how John Krasinski directs her. That must have been an interesting challenge because he definitely would have had to learn sign language. Although
maybe he had a translator.
I've seen an interview. She can read lips. So that wouldn't have been that much of an issue. But still, there's yeah, I would imagine if he had described like, and this sound's going to come about. Although the good thing with her character's deaf as well, so it's not like, and you're going to hear a loud ringing sound coming over here. You know, like the only thing he could maybe say is your hearing aid's going to do a sharp sound in your ear, or he'll like kind of point at the ear and be like, you know, do the notion for sharp or something like that. That's the way I could sort of see it. She is more prominent in the second movie. There's a lot of scenes of her, so I imagine. Yeah.
She's part of the reason why the movie ended as it did.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. The way they sort of did it, because hearing aids don't necessarily, and also the way they talked about hearing aids don't actually give you all your frequencies back.
Yeah.
100%. A good example of this is if anyone sees The Sound of Metal, that guy at a scene of that movie gets hearing like aids, gets like proper hearing fixed, and all his sound is really tinny and really like all his high frequencies are kind of back, but he's lost a lot of his low frequencies. That's kind of what can happen. Like you get a couple frequencies back, but you don't get your hearing 100% back.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
if you have damage to your inner ear, it can be permanent. The hearing loss, and also, it's if you have hearing loss for a long time, some sounds that you may have had years and years and years ago are gonna sound really weird to you now, and aren't gonna sound right. Like it's gonna take a while and a bit of training to get used to some of that. So I really liked the fact that they took advantage of like them not working. And then them basically turning into a weapon, although you sort of see that they sort of work a little bit because she can vaguely they do. Oh, I really don't want to spoil it, but there's some scenes in the second movie that sort of shows that it actually sort of works a little bit. But yeah, I do like that they use it as a weapon. Yeah, there's some cool ways they use it as a weapon as well in the second movie. That I really appreciated because I just thought it was cool that they're using these high frequency sounds that really humans can sort of hear, but they can get so loud that only the monsters can hear them. And I thought it was kind of like, it's almost like you're attacking a dog or something, like you can't, So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, did you have any cons, Eric, or any
On A Quiet Place?
Yeah, because we've mostly gone to pros. Like, I love the sound design. I loved that the movie doesn't use narration or monologue.
Yeah.
That would be easy.
I guess my cons would be more the fact that there's almost a lack of explanation, and I always like an explanation of where something came from.
You're gonna love the second movie then.
Yeah, because 28 Days Later explains where the zombie virus came from. Any Western explains where a family comes from and its roots. A Quiet Place is like, here's a family, here's some monsters, there you go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's in itself a big con because it's one story that kind of drags on.
Yeah.
And most of the scenes are a little too peaceful for a movie that is basically about surviving a monster attack. For me personally, that's a little bit too peaceful.
I kind of liked that it wasn't a gore fest every 5 minutes, or that it wasn't just like people being attacked all the time.
Yeah.
I liked because there was a lack of death and there was a lack of like stuff going on. There's a lot of implied stuff which I really like. I like this movie implies a lot and doesn't say a lot, both literally and metaphorically on like what it's doing. I also like that it has callbacks. It'll be like that thing you're gonna see then that's gonna pay off later on. For instance, a certain nail that we see in one scene pays off later on, and you are just like hoping, like, please don't. Yeah.
But there's quite a few instances of that in, say, Bird Box as well, because I know we.
So yeah, I was gonna ask, how does this compare to Bird Box, which you watched?
Right. Oh well, definitely one main comparison to Bird Box is the one part of the sensory
horrors.
Yeah, sensory horrors that affect how you would have to view and work around your world. You know, A Quiet Place is definitely better than a Bird Box because Bird Boxes you have to be blind the whole time, so that you don't get to see what's out there trying to eliminate you. But I think in this case, I wouldn't say there's a lot of close comparisons to Bird Box. A Bird Box has to A Quiet Place because A Quiet Place has monsters that you can see, you could feel, they're real. In Bird Box, so one little I guess no,
It's
review?
not. It's not. We Are the Monsters.
No.
Please tell me it's not.
There's a bit of a review video that I see, and one person made the comparison that the monsters in a Bird Box are more comparable to that of cosmic horrors, beings you cannot see, cannot touch, feel, but are always there in existence and capable of destroying you at any time, with you unable to do much about it. And yeah, that's a far more terrifying concept to see than, monsters that could be even taken down by, an improper hearing aid and a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but one thing,
I can see that.
yeah, but one thing but that's the one thing I like Bird Box over A Quiet Place. The monsters are far more terrifying.
But the characters are probably better, I would assume, in A Quiet Place.
Yeah, the characters.
I feel like there's more of a connection with the characters and focus.
There's a far better connection between the characters in A Quiet Place than Bird Box. Bird Box is like, I don't know how to even describe those characters. It's like desperate characters, I guess. Characters that are kind of thrown in already. By the way, already with characteristics of survivors.
You get in shape and you work out and stuff. Did you appreciate as a fellow man how ripped bloody John Krasinski got since The Office? Because he went from like being kind of schlubby in The Office to this, where he's like buffed up, he's got a beard.
My first thought was
dragged his wife into this.
My first thought was John Krasinski. How did you get from The Office to a horror movie?
Yeah.
And the second part was...
And he directs it, too.
Yeah. And then the second part was, well, bloody done.
Yeah. Because
I
was like, shit, he looks like he could fucking beat one of these things up, like get in a fist fight with one of them. Like, I could see why he got what was it? I think he got Tom Clancy. Like, he got a Tom Clancy thing.
Yeah.
After this as well, like a TV series. I'm like, I am not surprised. He is...
No.
Definitely got in shape for this stuff, and I'm looking forward to see what he directs. He's in the second movie, but not very much. He's just in it a little bit, and yes, you do get an explanation for what's going on. Now, before I get into the second movie, I might as well get into the one con I did have, and I had to do a little bit of research on this con. So there's Emily Blunt is pregnant in this movie, her character. So I actually went to... have to get a bit into my family a bit here. My mum is a midwife, chief midwife to be exact. And I asked her, because there's a scene in this movie where a woman gives birth herself. And I said to my mum, is this physically even possible? Because I didn't think it was. I mean, animals can, but I was thinking, like, why do we need midwives and all that, obviously. So can a human do it? And I was like, yeah. So... like, yep, they can, but there's a lot of bleeding, obviously. And midwives are there to make things a lot easier because it's not obviously easy. Also, there are two little issues that are like really nitpicky, but just things I noticed, and even my mum, like I told her this, and she's like, yeah, they should be in the movie. So I didn't see any afterbirth. I know this movie doesn't want to be gory and graphic, but that's one thing that should be there. Like, all the blood made sense because that does happen. But as gross as it is, I mean, it doesn't have to be there all the time, but especially if she was like dragging and walking from the bathtub to the shower thing, then there should be something sort of like that. The other thing that really doesn't make any sense is... there should be obviously a tube. There should be, you know what I'm talking about. The baby should, the umbilical cord should be cut. Because from talking with my mum about this, Emily Blunt is not going to be, let's just say she's not going to be smelling the best with the tube sticking out for that long and being on the baby. There's a reason why you need to cut that shit. So I hope John Krasinski bought some scissors or pliers or something, because I hope she wasn't like walking around. I mean, she clearly cut the umbilical cord at some point because she put it in the cot and everything. So yeah, and that's a real nitpicky thing. Oh yeah, and the other thing that was weird to me is you have all these great scenes showing how they survive and how they do everything, like food, all that stuff. No time do they ever show her breastfeed or give the baby milk. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm not even like a total expert on this stuff, but I know.
We're still on Quiet Place 1, right?
Yeah, we're still on Quiet Place 1.
Okay.
Because this is all in Quiet Place
Because
1.
doesn't the time frame between the time Emily Blunt gives birth to the end of the movie, isn't that a time span of maybe an hour at best? Would that mean?
I think it is somewhat realistic, her giving birth. Like, the timing, it's not as bad as...
So, I mean...
it's not as bad as, say, Junior, where they do a whole car
Yeah.
ride. Like, they do a 2-hour car ride and the baby still doesn't give birth. That makes no sense. Then again, that's a movie about a guy getting pregnant, so, again...
So, I mean, wouldn't that... Yeah, because I wouldn't even think that'd make any sense to, suddenly have a scene where she has to give the child breast milk, feed the
No,
child
that would
with
make
breast
sense,
milk.
because you kind of have to once the baby's born.
True.
They need milk. It's kind of a necessity. There's a reason why we breastfeed, or why we even do, milk, that sort of thing.
In fairness, though, it is a bit, that
it's
the
just a
situation,
little nitpicky thing that I thought would have made the movie even a bit more realistic and a bit more...
But the situation would not have called for something like that to happen,
Yeah,
though.
but you can have other problems down the line if you're not breastfeeding or doing
True
stuff
enough.
like that.
But then again, all their survival is kind of on their mind, so... That's
but
a nitpicky thing, yes, but...
as well, it's not like Emily Blunt wouldn't be able to produce milk. Yeah. She did seem like she was getting enough water and food and everything like that.
Absolutely.
So I imagine she could produce milk. This is a weird subject we've gotten on, but I wanted to cover it because... it's... As I said, very nitpicky thing. Just... I'm sure John Krasinski maybe thought about it, but at the same time, it was like, maybe they weren't allowed to put it in the movie. I don't know. Maybe it was something like they weren't allowed to show a tit or something in the movie, and they thought about it. I can see that happening.
You can show a breastfeeding mother without showing a tit. It's a weird thing.
A lot of movies don't like showing breastfeeding though, unless they're like an adult chick flick movie. So
it's not like it's a softcore.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, like, bloody the film. You know what I mean? Like the censoring boards and shit.
Censoring boards need to get the stick out of their asses.
Let me talk about the second movie, and I'll try not to spoil it. So,
hopefully not.
The second movie, Eric's giving me that look because I spoiled a movie last time for him. So, the second movie literally starts off where the first movie does. Cillian Murphy is in it. As you've seen, he is very much reminds me of Joel from The Last of Us. Gives me that sort of vibe. He's great in it, and he is mostly helping out the deaf girl in the movie, and the mother and the son are kind of doing their own thing. That's not really a spoiler. You sort of see that in the trailer, and you see it later on. I will say I don't like the boy as much in the second movie. I understand why he's upset in a couple scenes, but he also pissed me off in a couple scenes. So yeah, there's that. They are a little bit older in this movie, and the girl gets to be a bit of a badass. And there's some cool scenes where there's some really cool action sequences, and yeah, you do get to see how this started off. You do get to see the bus scene, which, by the way, the bus scene that you've seen in the trailer, they actually did that. That's an actual bus driving that fast to Emily Blunt, and she's having to back away from that. So, yeah.
That was a vicious scene in the trailer.
My only thing, and I've even seen some people talk about this, but they're not talking about it in a negative way, but it's definitely a negative for me. So you'll see this in the trailer as well. Cillian Murphy's wearing boots in the movie. Yeah, he's wearing boots. So that might not seem like a big deal, but boots make noise. Boots make not a massive amount of noise, but they make enough noise where if you walked across...
As someone who wears boots for his job, I can confirm this.
Yeah, and there are scenes where they do walk into like concretey sort of areas. There are scenes where he's walking across grass. There are scenes where he's running
I mean,
across like a
across
field
yeah.
or like sticks, like branches and stuff. And I'm
Well,
like,
okay, so there comes a bit of a difference because if he's wearing boots and he's running across grass or a field, it wouldn't make that much noise.
yeah, but he's
But if
running.
it's
There's lots of like different areas. Like he runs across a good example actually. He is walking and then I think a little bit running across like a dock, like a fish, like a boat dock.
yeah,
That's wood.
that would definitely make
Like the
enough.
creature should have came just from the footsteps alone. Like
Could have. But it does still take some time, even for noise, to reverberate back to any creature or object that can actually hear it or pick it up, the vibrations in the air. So I guess he felt he had enough time to, or I don't know.
I don't know, but he's good in the movie. Do not if you're I don't know how to pronounce his name. Desmond Honcho. He's the guy from Blood Diamond. Who's if you're going to this movie thinking he's going to be in a lot, he's not. Also, I was looking forward to seeing him because I know I'm not being mean here, but I know English. I don't think English is his first language, so I always like seeing an actor who English isn't their first language get to do, physical acting because usually they're very good at that, and usually it means they don't have to worry about an accent or English, But he does a lot of talking in the movie actually. And he's not that bad in it.
Okay.
So yeah, he's in it. What was I going to say though? Oh yeah, so the big thing with this movie was not the movie itself, but the experience of watching the movie. Because one, I didn't even know this showing was on, so I literally booked it last minute. It's my fault, but still, it sucked. I had to sit in the front row seats. I'm not that tall, but I'm 5'9", so I'm tall enough where being in a front row seat is not great for me having to look up. And it did make the movie a little bit scary because I couldn't sit all the way up, so I couldn't. I had to kind of relax and lay down a little bit to get into the chair. So since I'm kind of in a relaxed position, I'm almost laying down, kind of laying into my seat. Anything that jumped out was shit, boom. But two things I wanted to get into that were just the major things. One woman would not stop talking about just wouldn't stop talking while the movie was on. She was drunk or something, and she every 5 minutes would be like, "Oh, that happened in the last movie. Oh, this thing happened in the last movie. Oh, that character's doing that." I'm like, Jesus Christ, can you? And I'm just occasionally just trying not to make any noise, but just subtly trying to shush them because it just went for ages and ages, and then they finally shut up maybe 30 minutes into the movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was not fun. Luckily the movie's 2 hours something, so
Oh, thank God.
yeah. So at least I had
Maybe she got bored with herself making so
I
much
think
trouble.
she got scared, but she kept on laughing at people as well who were getting frightened by the jump scares or jumped up from the jump scares. I was like, yeah, we all get a little bit. You're getting it too, but I don't need to hear you every 5 minutes. Oh, so yeah, I went to that movie because I usually like the theater experience, and I like to go to horror movies for the experience. I actually like go to the movie if someone screams or gets like that because I know it is scary. It's kind of cool. But with this movie, I would say, yes, go see it in the theaters if you can. But if you can watch it on your computer with headphones in, that actually wouldn't be that bad because the sound design and everything is mixed so well that you're going to get really immersed and into this. So that's what I would say. So me and Erik are both going to say this is a great series of movies. You should definitely check that out. The first one, and if you can check out the second one, go check it out as well.
I'll try to check it out myself because, yeah, trying to find it online is not going to be easy. But hey, always good to see in the cinemas.
You can check out my Instagram at @InsertConnorHair. You can check out our YouTube page where we occasionally post our Let's Plays and maybe some other stuff.
You can also check out our Spotify and Facebook pages with the same name, Alternating with Erik. And we should have a new thing up right now. So just showing we're back in action.
Yep.
And we'll have this episode up on Spotify and YouTube and all that pretty soon as well.
Pretty soon as well. Well, you'll be listening to it.
Uh,
So yeah,
I'll be
and we're
listening
on
with all the cringes in the
Google
world.
Play, I think, as well now. So you can maybe check us out there. But this has been Alternating with Eric, episode
43.
43. Thanks for listening.
See ya.